Protons are finally transferred to the LHC, both in a clockwise and an anti-clockwise direction, where they are accelerated for 20 minutes to 6.5 TeV. Beams circulate for many hours inside the LHC beam pipes under normal operating conditions. For each collision, the physicist's goal is to count, track and characterize all the different particles. The charge of the particle, for instance, is obvious since particles with positive electric charge bend one way and those with negative charge bend the opposite way. Also, the momentum of the particle can be determined. Large Hadron Collider (LHC) is the world's largest particle accelerator, lies in a tunnel. The LHC is a ring roughly 28 km around that accelerates protons almost to the speed of light before colliding them head-on. Protons are particles found in the atomic nucleus, roughly 1,000 millionth of a meter in size. The LHC starts with a bottle of hydrogen gas, which is sent through an electric field to strip away the electrons, leaving just the protons. Electric and magnetic fields are the key to a particle accelerator. The impact on young Australians who are interested in buying a home of their own has been very significant. Australia's housing affordability now shapes the typical housing cycle, or housing career as some people call it. Most Australians in the normal course of events are people who move through the housing cycle in a way that matches the stages of life that they're at. So, they move out of the family home in their late teens or early 20s as they gain their independence from their families, then they rent-save for a home they can afford as either a group, or maybe a couple. And maybe they can upgrade it when they have a family in their middle age. They are more than likely to have paid off their mortgage. And that means they have housing security in their old age. That's no longer the typical housing cycle for Australians. Young people generally live at home for much longer than they once did. They generally rent for longer and they're more likely to be saddled with a mortgage, not just into their middle age but more often than not into their retirement as well. In fact, in 2006, 65,000 retiree households were still paying off the mortgage. Affordable rent is also an elusive right around Australia. We have very low rental vacancies, we see high turnover as landlords want to maximise their profits in tight market, and we see less long-term or lifelong rental, as we see in other countries and other economies. Why the bumblebees pick some flowers over others. Researchers have known for a while that flowers' color can be a signal. Color in shorthand that says to a bee, "Hey, I get some good quality nectar here, want to stop by for a visit." But new findings show that bees also use color to get clues about a flower's temperature. And according to a study from a British research team published in the journal Nature, some like it hot. Bees use up a lot of energy just staying warm on some days. In fact, they can't even fly if they are too cold. So if one flower is warmer than another, a bee can save some of its fuel by basking on that flower while it's doing its pollinating business. And it turns out that bumblebees consistently do choose warmer flowers over cooler ones, even when the two flowers offer up the same quantity and quality of nectar. Some plants seem to be evolutionarily adapted to be slightly warmer because the warmer ones get visited more by the chilly bees. When it comes to getting pollinated, apparently the heat is on, and that is the buzz. So, this is one picture of probably you all know what it is. When you see it, it is a familiar looking image, it is something probably we all have some personal experience with, right? This is a chest X-ray that would be taken in your doctor's office, for example, or a radiologist's office. And it is a good example of biomedical engineering in that it takes a physical principle, that is how X-rays interact with the tissues of your body, and it uses that physical principle to develop a picture of what's inside your body, so to look inside and see things that you couldn't see without this device. And you'll recognize some parts of the image. You can see the ribcage here, the bones, you can see the heart is the large bright object down here. If you have good eyesight from the distance, you can see the vessels leading out of the heart and into the lungs, and the lungs are darker spaces within the ribcage. Straight salary sales compensation plans aren't very common, but they do have a place in some organizations. With this type of structure, you'd pay your salespeople a straight albeit competitive salary like all of your other employees, and nothing else. No bonuses, no commissions, and few, if any, sales incentives. This type of compensation plan is most often used when the industry you operate within prohibits direct sales, when salespeople work as part of small groups or teams and all contributions are equal, when your sales team is relatively small, or when your salespeople are expected to spend much of their time on other responsibilities other than selling. However, these plans don't tend to offer motivation to salespeople, as there are no incentives for them to work harder. Salary plus commission sales compensation plans are possibly the most common plans used today. They're structured in a way that salespeople receive a lower base salary along with commission pay that makes up the majority of the total compensation. Organizations use salary plus commission sales compensation plans when there are opportunities to support all salespeople on this structure and when there are proper metrics in place for tracking sales to ensure that the splits are fair and accurate. This type of plan is often the better choice as opposed to straight salary because it offers motivation to increase productivity and to achieve goals. It also offers more stability. Salespeople will still get some types of pay even if they're in training, when sales are low during certain months, or if market conditions get volatile. However, it can be more complex to administer. Commission-only sales compensation plans are exactly what they sound like. You pay your salespeople for the sales they bring in and nothing else. Atmospheric currents carry soot thousands of miles from where it is produced, to the Himalayas and the Arctic. Black carbon, being black, absorbs sunlight, so even a little soot in snow makes it melt faster. And when snow melts, global sea levels rise, threatening our freshwater indigenous communities and polar bears who hunt on the Arctic ice. Climate change has been a big thing for a while and carbon dioxide has been its main cause. Scientists estimate that soot causes 25% of human-caused global warming. It's the second leading cause of Arctic warming after carbon dioxide. Let's not underestimate the impact of this tiny particle. But there's good news, reducing black carbon may be the fastest way to slow global warming. Buy time for the Arctic. Yes, even more so than changing a light bulb. Since black carbon only stays in the atmosphere for a couple of weeks, reducing it will produce results immediately. Of course, reducing soot alone won't solve global warming, but solving our soot problem now will help buy time for the Arctic and allow us to deal with the bigger problem of carbon dioxide. We have the cleaner industries, cook stoves, and diesel, now we have to use them. In developed nations, we've significantly reduced our black carbon, but we still have much more to do. We need to tighten our standards at home and invest in cleaner technologies in developing nations. In a world going on 7 billion people, you might feel rather little yourself. But if you urge the US government and the European Union to take the lead on black carbon reduction, you can make a big difference. One of the social issues faced by the state of Alaska is the lack of mental and emotional well-being of the Native Alaskans. It is very unfortunate that many of the Native Americans are living under poor conditions throughout the country. In the cases of Native Alaskans, even virtually entire villages are suffering from a lack of mental and emotional well-being, which includes continuing poor physical and mental health. Alcohol abuse, domestic violence, homicides, and suicides are frequent among them, which of course, lead to families falling apart. It is tragic to see that many children are abused and not educated properly. As a matter of fact, the children themselves are abusing alcohol and other chemicals, and the rate is increasing over the time. Since parents are suffering from mental illnesses and alcohol abuse, they can't take care of their children, so many children are being taken care of by others or simply neglected. Therefore, we can conclude that Alaskan Natives are losing hold of their communities, cultural identities, and most importantly, their childhoods. So you can see how serious the issue is. Plus, rather than making a living for themselves, they are depending on public services and subsidies. They have lost control of and responsibility for their economy and governing institutions. The result of the scientific research shows that all metals respond to the heat. In recent years, people used to think that metal is supposed to blend under the heat, but sometimes it doesn't behave, so because atoms in the metal have random processes. The heat can accelerate the processes but won't change the essence of randomness, so it could violate what we used to think. Hydration heat characteristics. A blended cement containing up to 50% steel slag was studied at 25°C, 45°C and 60°C by isothermal calorimeter. Kinetics equations were used to explore kinetics of blended cement. Kinetics parameters, N, K, and E, were calculated and analyzed. Results indicated that the activity of steel slag was very low. Steel slag accelerated the hydration of aluminates but decelerated the hydration of silicates in cement clinker. A small amount of steel slag affected the hydration process of cement. Elevated temperature obviously promoted the hydration of blended cement. The hydration of blended cement containing no more than 35% steel slag was controlled by nucleation of hydrates in acceleration period and by diffusion of ions in decay period. The hydration of blended cement containing 50% steel slag was mostly dominated by phase boundary reaction, then directly by diffusion. E increased with increasing steel slag content. Volunteers in scientific studies sometimes get compensated. The payment can be cash, a gift card, or something almost worthless. It's amazing what people will do for a lollipop when they've had a few drinks. Simon Moore is a professor of public health research at Cardiff University in the UK. And the lollipops were for people who agreed to blow into a breathalyzer. While out on a Friday or Saturday night in Wales, more than 1,800 people agreed to the exchange. And the scores covered a wide range of alcohol intake. So that would go from 0 upwards. I think one of the largest scores we had was 120, which is near-death experience. The researchers also gave a subset of volunteers a short survey about drinking habits and health risks. Questions like, "How drunk are you right now?" and "How extreme has your drinking been tonight?" And they found that even very drunk respondents felt relatively more sober, if they were surrounded by even drunker people. In other words, our perception of intoxication and its risks is relative. So this is the point: as you change context, perceptions will change, although the absolute level of alcohol in their system doesn't change. The study is in the journal BMC Public Health. Moore says one way to use this finding is for better city zoning. In the United Kingdom, for example, there's been a big push to put more premises that sell alcohol in the same district, in the same area. And what this does is create a concentration of drinkers. So what we might argue from this is, well, let's try to break that up a little bit. We can ask two fundamental questions about animal behavior they referred to as proximate and ultimate. Proximate questions are those concerned with the mechanisms that bring about behavior. Ultimate questions are those concerned with the evolution of behavior. We can divide the proximate and ultimate into two sub-questions. For proximate, how does behavior develop, and secondly, what causes the behavior? For ultimate, you can ask how did the behavior evolve, and secondly, what is the adaptive of significance of the behavior? What's its purpose? Together these comprise what are called Tinbergen's 4 questions about animal behavior. Nico Tinbergen was one of the founding fathers of the study of the animal behaviors. These questions represent different ways of studying animal behavior, and understanding the difference between those 4 questions are fundamental to understanding behavior and indeed the whole of biology. How do we study animal behavior? Well, that depends on the type of question we're hoping to answer.